Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Family Matters for this week. This week we have Grant, Julie, and Glenn Anderson with us, and they're all the way from Detroit in America. And we're going to continue a session that we started in the last one about suffering and growing through suffering. Now, Grant suffered a huge accident on the way home from a Bible camp 13 years ago. He was in a coma for weeks. They didn't think he would live at all, but he came through it. They said that he would be a vegetable if he did live. And well, we have Grant sitting right in front of us today, which is really cool, and definitely not a vegetable. So it's very exciting. So last week we heard a lot about the accident, and we heard a lot about the initial recovery. This week we want to continue with that, and we want to see what's happened since that time, since those first year or so, and how that recovery has been or come to the completion that it is today, and also how that the experiences that you have experienced have been able to reach out and comfort others through them. Right, a reading I wanted to do this time was from 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 9 to 10. And this is what it says. This is Jesus talking to Paul. But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." And I thought that was really appropriate. I mean, last time you talked about the time in the hospital in those first few months, first few weeks, where it seemed like everyone came to visit. And through the weakness, I mean, Grant, you were in a coma and you couldn't even move. And through that weakness, people saw the power and love of God because of all those visitors. And I think that's wonderful. So welcome this morning, today. Here we go again. To you all. It's really good to have you with us again. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And so in our discussions last time, we talked about what family life was like before the accident. Share with us now what family life started to look like post-accident.
Well, it was, obviously it was totally different. We had to renovate our home to physically make it handicap accessible for Grant. So there was, the physical changes and all the turmoil and decision making that went on with that, and then all of the decisions that we had to make in relation to his therapies. Which therapies, which doctors, which programs to enroll Grant in that would be best for his recovery, and then the very personal impact of those changes, how they affected us, our marriage and our relationship with our children. There were just so many facets to this equation that
dimensions.
Some went very smoothly, some didn't go so smoothly, some were overwhelming. Some you just push to the back burner because you don't want to deal with them, and sometimes you're too exhausted to even to deal with some of the things, but because they're so overwhelming. But it was a very difficult time. You think that once we got out of the hospital, things would be easier, but they really weren't. They were just harder in a different way.
I was out of the house more than most people, although it was for therapies, and I built a regiment of going to the YMCA in Farmington, which is outside of Detroit, and swimming. Now I swim 3 or 4 miles a week, and it's like so I get out more than most people.
So yeah, he had a schedule of therapies that we had to keep up with, and somebody had to always be with him. And we had a 9-year-old that we had to, not had to, wanted to be active in his life. And we had one of the room, in fact, the room that we're in right now was a 3-season room, because in Michigan we have, well, actually we have 2 seasons, cold and not cold. But yeah, there's Grant swimming. And he did a lot of, we got him involved in disabled games of, to be with people that had disabilities, and to feel that he was moving, going someplace. But this room that we're in, we had to put a shower into this room because we couldn't get him upstairs into a shower. So we didn't have a shower downstairs. So there was a shower in our 3-season room, which later on we, built a bathroom for Grant down here and his own bedroom and that. But we had been told that he would only get so far after a year, or maybe year and a half. Maybe was it 2 years? Maybe.
The wisdom in the community is 2 years is what about your extent of recovery from traumatic brain injury, and what they're really saying is your dramatic improvement is 2 years, and then everything kind of levels out. It doesn't plateau, but then the improvements are much more gradual, and that's basically the approach that the therapists take, but it wasn't the approach that we put. You could in therapies you can take the approach of adaptation and compensation,
Accept where you were.
Accept where you're at, or you can do therapies that are going to push you to recovery. And we chose, and Grant was on board with this, that we're going to push for recovery. And that's the approach that we've taken, to the detriment of a lot of things which maybe we shouldn't have let go, to the consternation of a lot of the therapists and doctors who didn't agree with our approach, but we found people that would work with it, and that's what we did. And we think
Proved to be helpful.
And we think it's proved to be helpful for that.
Grant made a lot of progress that he was not expected
Definitely.
to make. In fact, some of those doctors have come back to us and said that whatever you're doing, keep doing.
Keep doing it. Yep.
And the things that would be put at the wayside would be, like organized house, which really is not that important. Some of the things, but we did have a 9-year-old, and we did try to make sure he got what he needed, but it is very hard for the siblings to get, they don't have mom and dad the same way that they did before. And so that does have its downsides. The other option would have been to put Grant in an institution, which is what they wanted us to do.
You work for insurance companies.
Probably. And even our friends thought it would be too much work for us. It would be too much for us, but we were not willing to do that. And our family did agree to bring him home. So we were thankful for that.
Yeah.
And Glenn, you became full-time caregiver, is that correct?
Yeah. What happened was we made in part of this decision process. Julie had her own business, and I had just been teaching for a year with no guarantee of future employment. And we made the decision that I would stay home. We brought Grant home. I would stay with him, be his full-time caregiver. And that's what we did. And my whole view and career and everything changed. And I was doing something totally different than not only what I expected, but what I could even know how to do. I had to learn all sorts of new things. Cooking.
He's the best cook in the house.
All sorts of things. But it was a big change. It really was.
He did. He's accepted it very well, we think, and we're very thankful. But we did, after a time, when we felt that we felt comfortable to have Grant have other people take him to therapy. We do have aides with him, when he goes to therapies later on. We did get that. So we've had a
couple of my cousins at first, and now some people in the community don't live far from us.
Yeah, are aides for him. So that makes it helpful.
So it's not quite a 24/7 deal right now. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you able to walk now, Grant?
Yes, but not with perfect form, and not as quick as I'd like, and other people would like. My left hip, it needs strengthening. That's a PT, is the goal of PT and therefore, because of the hip's weakness and the glute weakness, my balance is not very good.
His left side blindness makes walking very difficult because
Yeah.
he can't see both sides.
Yeah.
And so there is
So I'll
a,
never drive again, which is a nice thing and a bad thing.
so, yeah, wasn't supposed to walk or move his legs at all. So he can lift up his left leg and do quite a bit with it.
And I'm able, starting to play two-handed piano music. That's
Oh,
brand
wow.
new.
In fact, just yesterday he had a breakthrough. Do you remember what it was with the piano? He's got a mobile arm support that holds out one finger,
Or yeah.
and it allows me to
My
move it.
mobile arm supports my elbow, so you don't have to hike the shoulder, and I can focus on just the fingers, and I'm able to play a scale with one.
Yeah, but what did you do yesterday? Do you remember what you did yesterday? With two?
Oh, I played two notes at the same time with one
His left
hand.
hand instead of just one finger. His other finger actually activated, and now he was playing with two fingers. So that was huge.
Yeah. That's the latest. That's latest, just
Event.
as in days.
That's good news. Excellent. That's really
Yeah.
good.
It's just one day at a time. Christ didn't take it 5 steps at a time. He took it one day at a time, and we can do the same thing in our life.
it's Grant's used this theme of his therapy in a number of exhortations, where in therapy with a brain injury, repetition is the key. You do the motion again and again and again till your neural pathways in your brain are new ones are made, so that that motion or that activity becomes easier. And he's applied that to our spiritual life, where we practice the commandments of Christ. We practice good works. We practice showing love to our brothers and sisters, to others. And it's just amazing how Grant's world of physical therapy kind of mirrors what our spiritual life should be. And we need to practice these things. It just doesn't come like that. And that's one of the reasons why we're in an ecclesia. So we need people to practice our spiritualness with. So we're in the ecclesia to do that.
Yeah.
And we're not called to monasticism. We're called to ecclesial life in the truth. And there's a real good reason for that. And Grant's really developed that theme quite a bit.
One of his exhortations was on walking. And what did you remember what you said about walking? How every step is what? Remember?
Every step, you're keeping yourself from falling. You're moving forward and it's catching your balance, and then you're comfortable moving forward and losing your balance and gaining balance.
Yeah.
So we're actually falling and gaining our balance through life every day.
And I suppose it's a lot like that quote that Paul says, forgetting what is behind and looking forward. I move toward that goal.
Yes, that was also a verse that could apply to my talks and our discussions today. Thank you.
Yeah. That's cool. For someone with a traumatic brain injury, you did something quite remarkable, Grant. You went back to university. What was it? 2 years after your injury? And
what was it like?
You
said
it was a lot more challenging, but it was very satisfying to have it completed finally, and because most people with my age bracket, when by the time I see them, they're graduated with masters or bachelors, or some of them a PhD even.
Yeah,
it felt very validating to finally have a degree, a mastery of the subject, which I attempted to take on from a childhood.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how did you?
That actually changes his degree. He was going for an education degree
to teach in the schools,
and he had to
brought up the education part.
Yeah, he changed it from education to just a Bachelor of Arts in Music, right?
Yeah.
He didn't have to. He just wanted to because
He wanted it done, right?
he wanted to get done, and he was so involved in therapies that it just made it difficult.
Yeah, I want to focus on walking and hand usage rather than schooling or whatever.
He did walk across the stage though to get his diploma.
That felt good. I felt really good to walk commencement at Wayne State University.
Fantastic.
Really good.
Yeah.
It took him 6 years to complete that last year of school. He was done with 3 years by the time he was 20 years old, and it took him 6 years to finish the last year.
But I got a whole degree, debt free, and
Yeah, debt free. That's important too.
a lot of people are in debt because of there's
He's now working on teaching. He's going to try to teach piano again. That's his goal.
Wow.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So you've
Good
done
voice.
quite a lot of public speaking on suffering, Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Share with us some of the thoughts that you share in these talks.
It's a mixture. I incorporate what my dad was saying of walking and catching your balance, and that was one aspect of it. But the lecture is always focused on the hope that is ahead of us, that gives us the resolve to get up and keep going, and the importance of the ecclesia and the brotherhood, both carrying each other's crosses. That was always a factor of all of them. And I gave handicap awareness talks at many elementary schools around the country and even Ontario.
And your message a lot was you choose to.
Choice is up to you. What is your mindset, either towards other people or yourself? How do you look at people with disabilities, or how do you treat yourself? We all have disabilities in some sense, whether it be our sin nature or a physical impingement. Just what do you choose to do with the talents you have and the gifts and the blessings and not the cursings, but we're all cursed with this nature. But what do you choose to do with the roles that God's given you in our life? Because we can handle anything in our life if Christ could handle going to the cross and bearing all our weight on his shoulders. And it really made that come home to me. And every time, it's good. It might be annoying to some of my head injured or therapy friends who are very tired and always sitting down watching TV and medications make them gain weight. But giving these talks has really made my spiritual side of the spark of my faith alive, the light of my faith.
Grant, one of his big points is that you can choose how you respond to suffering. We can't really always say why it happens, just like Glenn was saying earlier. We can't really pinpoint exactly if it's for ourselves, if it's for other people, if it's for a combination of things. But it does develop your character if you choose to respond in a positive way.
Yes, enjoy, because be joyful is also one of the most important commandments in the Bible.
Rejoice. Yeah.
Rejoice, sing, pray, and all those things which people take for granted. I did, and now I'm realizing the importance of them in my life and everyone's lives. It helps.
Granted.
Yes.
You were telling us
Another granted.
You're telling us, Grant, that your early life, the positivity that you had in your early life really helped with your post-recovery as well.
Yes.
And that you wanted to really pass that message on as well.
Yes.
I'm adjusting his pillow behind him because it's hard to sit up straight. In case anybody's wondering what I'm doing.
That was one of your things, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Disability talks.
Yeah. I had an acronym for the students I would speak to at elementary schools. AMPC N squared T equals AMPC for introducing equations in young kids' minds. No negative talk equals always make positive choices. And if we in our younger adult life try to not speak negative of ourselves or anyone, always to make positive choices. We can do anything and go to a place that's better for us and other people. And it's true academically and especially spiritually. It ties. God's put so many harmonies in my life with therapies and spiritual applications. The blessing and the powerful thing. It's in everyone's lives. Do we take time to notice it? Like nature around us, how beautiful it is, and how we didn't create it, but it was created before we were. Like His plan with Christ and us.
You want to do the N squared T and
I had the kids.
We've done it with adults too.
I divide the school in half, and one side I have repeat after me N squared T. The other side I want you to do AMPC. AMPC. AM. And before you know it, I had them.
Keep going with this here.
AMPC. 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 And before you know it, I had them all rocking out to a hip hop beat, and that's.
And then you gave them bracelets.
I gave them. I made bracelets designed to match my mind.
And we've used them for
Ecclesial things too.
Ecclesial things too. Yeah.
So I'm not laying around for long. I keep very busy. Thankfully, I still have much to do, and we all do.
Yeah. No, that's great. So you're really making. I was going to say lemons out of lemonade. A lemonade out of lemon.
Sometimes we make it the other way around. I mean, not all days are good.
Just don't sell lemons in your place.
I'm drinking a lot of water though. I like lemonade, but the best thing is lemonade is water. I can do exhort on that because reading.
The living water.
Yeah, I spend lots of time listening and studying God's word now, and
yeah, he does readings a lot. Posts
verses on my wall, and if we're known for bringing people to the book, then it will put us in a good light with other people and ourselves and God. And it's helpful for everything. And the waters of wash hydrate our bodies for exercise, heal us when we're sick, and create a current we can flow through in our life.
Have you got anything you would really want to tell young people about your experiences, Grant? About about appreciating life or appreciating family, or anything else?
I mentioned in brevity, but the acronym always make positive choices, and I said because I kind of was living out that unknowingly of my life, always making positive choices what I did. And not being negative and embracing people in whatever situation they were and helping them. It was a trickle-down effect, and I would encourage young people to keep that in mind in their life, and it'll serve you in so many ways. And with preaching, with just keeping you grounded, especially if you surround yourself with the faithful people, and you'll have a good effect on them, and they'll have a great and supportive effect on you. And that's the blessing of God creating two people, not just one person in the Garden of Eden. Because it only takes very hard for one person, woman or female, regardless, to cut down a New Zealand 100-foot wide tree trunk. Yeah, I don't know how big the trees are down there, but if Dr. Seuss designed them. What?
But it takes 1,000 years to grow it. Yeah.
Exactly.
We need people.
Yeah, and it takes 2,000 years to make these plants around us walking and breathing and working in our lives. When we have the power to uproot them and plant them in better fertile soil, and that's the garden of our ecclesias. And that's an exit right there. We just
we better write that down.
Yeah. Always written before we said it.
Let's play back the recording. What did I say?
Grant, before his accident, he had a whiteboard in his room, and it had written on there the people that he wanted to visit, the people that he wanted to see, pray for, call, and we found that board after his accident in his room. And it's funny because when he first woke up from the coma, one of the first persons that he talked about was somebody we know that was really struggling after losing a child, and then she had cancer, our dear friend Sue Emmerich in the meeting. And he had that on his mind when he woke up from the coma. So when he got hit, his brain was thankfully where it was supposed to be. Not that it was perfect, because he had his weaknesses too. And so we're not trying to say that. I'm just saying that the more we are in a better place, easier it is when adversity comes along. It's like practicing the right thing will help the right thing happen.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And I was so admirable in any regard, in more than a couple ways, because I surrounded myself with people I wanted to get and be educated by.
Well, he struggled too, because he had won $20,000 from Disney with a group of people
from high school
to make it. He was on a different trajectory.
A Disney miniseries, and that could have pulled me away.
He would have been very, very good at it.
I could have done entertainment. Sorry, continue.
Okay.
I could have gone to entertainment business, and I had friends in that project go off and go on Broadway and even be in movies and TV shows. And so I had a big pull, because I'm a performer, to go that way. That's why I stood that prayer on the beach at Manitoulin, and that's always been carried me through, that God has a reason for me to be alive, and you have to keep yourself positive, your chin up, and plug along.
Yeah, and it's not that would have been a bad life. You could do a life like that. It's just very difficult to also
it wouldn't be satisfying.
Have your faith built up at the same time. It's just more of a challenge to do it that way.
Yeah.
And I think he probably could have done it because he was very vocal in his beliefs, but it would have been hard. And obviously we feel that Grant his direction has been changed to meet a different audience, is the way you say it, right? You're on a different stage.
Yeah. And you're certainly reaching that different audience as well. I mean, we're really inspired by you, and I know there are hundreds of others who are as well. In fact, I was talking with you the other day about with someone at church, and I said, we're going to be talking to Grant Anderson, and he had an accident after a camp at Manitoulin, and one of the ladies I was talking to said, I was at that camp. And then another one who was just standing a little bit further over said, I was at that camp too. So next thing, there was this big discussion, and it was really encouraging. And I know they'll be listening to later on.
Wow, who were they?
One was Anna, would have been Thomas, and Claire Hibbert.
We'll have to get in touch with them
and
thank them for that. There were a lot of people that Grant had got involved in as far as just being friendships and helping that we didn't even know. We had so many people write us afterwards that Grant had helped us do this, or Grant got us to do that. And, even people who were in our religious community and people who were in the community at large. He was very much out there with people, getting them to give thanks for their food was one of what one would say. But he also ate all their food too.
I had 30 piano students. I knew all those piano students' fridges.
We would feed Grant.
Mothers very well.
In fact, I saw somebody out in New Jersey who, when Grant went out in New Jersey, when they'd made some music out there, one of the fathers said, yeah, your son made himself right at home. And right to the refrigerator.
He felt like his family. He walked on in. I said, "That's because you're Diliberto. You're Italian. Your family."
Yes. So he was really.
And
it's one of those good things that came out of this, is that we saw a different side of Grant that he didn't brag about. He didn't let us know, but because people felt that they had to tell us about Grant, he told us all these good things, and very uplifting things that he did in their lives that we had no idea about. So, I guess there was a little, light there in a very dark place. And it was very helpful to hear that, oh, that was our son. He did those things and he said those things and he helped these people. That's what we should be doing our whole lives, right?
For instance, I encourage my piano students, the 30 or 40 of them, to pray for the meals. In fact, I did pray with some of them and read with them the God's Word. And if they had any questions, they'd ask me what my opinions were on Bible passages.
So that was also, I think, in putting it in perspective of anybody's family, often we think that our kids are on the wrong path or on the wrong road, or, because we were concerned about Grant being in a performance career, that we do need to trust in God that sometimes they do more things than we tend, I don't know if I'm making sense, but we have a tendency to think the worst instead of thinking the best. And we should think the best of our children and have some faith in them that what we've hopefully taught them has taken root.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. But.
At a certain point, the plant needs to grow in its plot of soil without having its hands in its roots. And I'm getting there day by day. And one day I can grow on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Glenn and Julie, what advice would you give to other parents who find themselves going through the same sort of thing? Because it's I mean, if it hasn't happened, it's going to happen to someone at some stage where their child is incapacitated in some way or worse. What advice would you give to parents to keep their faith, to stay strong, and to keep going through those really tough times?
Well, one thing, our children, I'm trying to put a positive spin on here, think positive. Sometimes our kids don't do positive things, and sometimes they do. And you can, often you can blame yourself for the things that happen. You should have done things this way. You should have done things that way. I would just really pause and consider to not take the time to blame yourself, because it not only is it not good for yourself, it's not good for anybody around you. It's good to stay focused and move forward and to just work with what God has given you, and not think, I had some people say, well, your son was so involved. Why did it happen to him? And not someone, they didn't say not someone else, but just why is he taking down somebody who's so active in the ecclesial work? And sometimes we can think, well, another child may not be active in such things, and are we even at more of a danger of something happening because of that? Well, I don't think that's why these things happen. I don't think we can say you did something good's going to happen. You did something bad's going to happen.
That was also a theme of my lecture, my suffering lecture.
Yeah, and I think the lesson of Job is really important with that too. We don't have direct retribution for what we do, and because if we did, we'd probably all be underneath trucks.
To be honest,
It's a real difficult thing, because when you're in the midst of a traumatic situation, you don't want to hear a lot of stuff that people say, because you're so in so much turmoil, and people say the wrong things and things that at that point are not helpful. And we found that you can let people know who are in difficult circumstances that you're there to listen to them if they need that, without spouting all sorts of advice based upon your own experiences, because we found that a lot of that was not that helpful at the time we were in it. So now we look back and we are a little more circumspect in what we say and what we do. As far as the advice that I would give in general is that you need to remember the big picture. It's
Perspective.
it's perspective. It's the macro view. We tend to look at the micro view of our lives and the things that we're going through, how hard they are, and we ask the hard questions, why? But we need to see it from God's point of view, which is the macro view, the big picture. Where is this leading to? And often we don't have the answer because we can't see the big picture. And that's where our faith and trust in God comes from. I don't know if you've ever heard of the comparison of the ant and the cathedral, which is one that I like. You have the ant crossing the floor of a great cathedral and has no knowledge or understanding of the great edifice that is surrounding it, with its beauty and the history and the architecture and the structure of this building, because it's so intent on its own way of just crossing that floor. Well, that's kind of like God and us. We cannot always see the big picture, but we can have trust that in the big picture it's for our benefit, for it's our long-term salvation. And when we're in that place, I think we can often more fully endure the circumstances. It's like the first century believers. They were so confident in the resurrection and the promise that Jesus gave of life everlasting that they could endure the persecutions that they went through, that they could preach in the face of open hostility, because they saw the risen Lord. They were confident in the resurrection of the dead. So they could endure those things. And I think when we look at the big picture, where this is all leading, it gives us a hope.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
I'd like to add to that, because that was beautiful, Glenn. I really like that.
What's your next exhortation, Glenn?
It is difficult to hear things from people. I have to agree with that, but I also want to emphasize that it's better to say something and have a connection with people than it is to not say anything at all, because it's a lonely place to be when people don't want to talk to you because they don't know how to say or what to say. It's better to say something and, work it through. And at least it was for me. I'm not a isolated person. I like support from people, and I might not always agree with what everybody says, but I do want that connection. And so something that well, I think a lot of us do, but some people are more to themselves. But I think we need to learn how to speak with one another when people are going through struggles, to be more, like Glenn said, more empathetic, and be a listening ear, and just be there for them for a hug, or just to say, this stinks. Just to say, yeah, that really stinks. That's
really easy thing to say.
Thank you so much for sharing. We really appreciate you taking this time to share your story with us, and the just the hope and the inspiration that comes out of it. And the victories along the way, and what you've done with it.
And I love the way you brought out the music and the joy, and keeping really positive, the positive choices and no negative talk. I think that's amazing, and I just think that's a real inspiration to others to be able to get through pretty much any trial that we have, knowing that the trials do come from God, and they are for our benefit in the long run. We really appreciate what you've done for us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
I do want to say, because we say these messages doesn't mean we're always good at it. We do want it that way, but we're not always good at it. We're working at it just like anybody else. So if anybody's out there thinking that it's easy, it's not.
Like my stinking joke, everybody stinks at one point in the day.
Yeah. So yeah.
No, I understand. Totally understand. Yeah.